Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are wading into, well, one of the most persistent and, frankly, painful paradoxes of modern life, the death of desire.
Right. It's this question that just, it hangs in the air for so many long-term couples.
Exactly. The one they might whisper about to friends or to a therapist, or sometimes just silently to themselves.
And that question is really the starting point for our source material today. It's from a really provocative text by Vyrenijus Andrijauskas called A Guide to Intimate Practices and Relationships.
And the question is,
why do nearly 90% of couples feel that their intimacy just dies after only a few years?
90%, that number is just, it's staggering.
It's almost a universal experience. And what that suggests is that our whole collective understanding of intimacy is deeply, maybe even fundamentally flawed.
We think we have the playbook, but the source material we're looking at today argues that we've completely lost the map.
We've replaced it with habit, with, automated unconscious connection.
Your disconnection.
Exactly. And the guide, it really grounds this universal pain in a very specific story right at the beginning. It uses this case study of a couple, Emily and Mark.
Okay.
They're 12 years in. They have kids, a house, a shared life. There's real affection there, no doubt.
Right.
But the passion, that vibrant connection, it's become, and I'm quoting the text here, a mechanical act.
Wow.
And their intimacy is neglected like dust gathering on old books.
That's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
And it's the critical crisis, isn't it? It's what people call the roommate syndrome. It's not a sign that you've fallen out of love. It's a symptom of failing to sustain connection.
You're just co-managing a life. And Emily and Mark are the perfect illustration of what this text identifies as the core barrier.
Which is?
Unspoken desires and this mutual, just crippling fear of rejection.
So they're trapped in silence.
Completely. They're either assuming the other person knows what they want, or maybe even worse, they're assuming the other person doesn't want what they want.
So it's safer to just say nothing.
It feels safer, yeah. But the text says their internal pain comes from this realization that they were operating with, and this is another great phrase, a goal without a path.
A goal without a path.
Right. It leads only to this superficial satisfaction, a quick fix, but not a true deep connection. They're just going through the motions and expecting a different result every time.
Okay, let's break down the secrets they were keeping, because that feels like where the real cracks start to show.
Absolutely. So Emily, for her part, she had this private world. She was watching adult films, specifically ones with multi-partner scenarios. And the guide notes that she found this unbridled greater pleasure in those moments alone.
So it was kind of self-discovery for her.
It was, but it was fueled by these fantasies that she felt were totally forbidden. And she was, terrified of sharing any of this with Mark.
Worried he would judge her.
Judge her, misunderstand her, or maybe see it as a direct threat to their relationship, like she was saying, you're not enough.
Which creates this profound loneliness right inside the relationship. It's the absolute opposite of what intimacy is supposed to be.
Exactly. She's seeking a deeper sensory engagement, but the way she's doing it is totally solitary. And it's all driven by this shame, this fear of being truly seen.
And what about Mark? He's not just a bystander in this.
Not at all. He's carrying his own burden. He's picking up on this emotional distance, probably subconsciously, and he's reacting. The text says he was silently pondering open relationships.
As a solution.
As a way to, quote, free themselves from suffering.
It's fascinating. He sees it as this almost logical mathematical fix to what is a deeply emotional problem.
Right. If I can't satisfy her, or if she's not satisfying me, well, maybe we bring in someone else, and that diffuses the pressure. It solves the equation.
But he doesn't say it.
He keeps it completely hidden. He's afraid of losing her entirely if he suggests something so radical.
So you have two people who are, on the surface, deeply committed. But underneath, they're holding these potentially explosive secrets.
Yeah.
And they're both looking for an external solution.
A third person, a fantasy, something from the outside. But the guide argues, and this is its fundamental point, the problem isn't physical. It's not external at all.
It's energetic and emotional.
It's rooted entirely in their failure to communicate what's actually going on inside, their real unmet needs.
So the core diagnosis here seems to be that modern intimacy is suffering from a lack of conscious presence. It's like an emotional engineering failure.
That's a great way to put it. And that really is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to explore that contrast.
The contrast between the modern fast food intimacy that Emily and Mark have.
Quick, goal-oriented, ultimately unsatisfying.
And these ancient, slow sex practices that the guide presents, which are drawn from Taoist and Tantric traditions.
And we have to ask the critical practical question. Can these really work for busy modern couples? I mean, people juggling jobs, kids, all of it.
Can we actually overcome that emotional coldness, that difficulty just accepting our own sexuality that the text says is the biggest block?
It's a huge question. So let's unpack this map and see if we can find a path for reconnection.
Okay, so let's shift now. Let's dig into the philosophical foundation of this guide, because this is where it really starts to draw that sharp contrast.
Right.
The prevailing Western view of intimacy versus this ancient consciousness from Taoist and Indian tantric practices.
And what's so fascinating is how your definition of success in the bedroom just completely shifts depending on your philosophy.
How so?
Well, the Western approach, as the guide lays it out, is just fundamentally goal-oriented.
The climax.
A climax, the finish line, the conclusion of the act. That's how we measure success.
And so intimacy becomes just another item on the to-do list.
Exactly, something to tick off. And the text says that's precisely why passion fades. It becomes transactional.
It's the efficiency mindset,
Yeah.
It's bleeding into the most personal area of our lives.
Yeah.
How quickly can we get the result?
And if it takes too long, or if you don't reach that climax, it's labeled a failure. And that mindset is just lethal to any kind of authentic connection. It creates performance anxiety, emotional detachment, the whole thing.
So how does the Eastern perspective flip that?
It flips it completely. The Indian tantric view, which the author cites, sees sexual interaction not as a physical release, but as a spiritual tool.
A spiritual tool.
Yeah. They bring up the myth of Shiva and Shakti, where sexual interaction is considered the first karma.
The first karma. What does that actually mean?
It means it's the original action, the source of all creation, of all dynamic energy in the universe.
So that's a massive shift in perspective.
It's huge. It transforms the physical act into this deeply spiritual and energetic process. The text emphasizes that the lingam, and it's not just talking about the physical male organ here, is a symbol.
A symbol for what?
For the primary cylindrical form of creative energy, it's Shiva's pillar of cosmic light.
So in that view, intimacy isn't just for pleasure or for having kids.
No, it's a sacred practice. It's meant to awaken and balance the energies in your body and your soul. It's for spiritual growth, for achieving unity with cosmic consciousness. Samadhi.
Which explains why some tantric traditions would have sexual rituals in temples. It wasn't just about recreation.
Not at all. It was seen as a direct, even an accelerated path to enlightenment. The whole intention of the practice changes from, say, hedonism to spiritual awakening.
Okay, and what about the Taoist approach from China? How does that fit in?
The Taoist approach takes that concept and it roots it very explicitly in harmony with nature, with the Tao. It's about spiritual development through managing your sexual energy, your qi.
So the goal isn't the physical endpoint.
The goal shifts entirely. It's about achieving this profound state of presence. The Taoist philosophy is aiming for a union where, and this is a quote, true union occurs when you lose yourself and you are everywhere and nowhere.
That sounds incredibly beautiful, but also maybe a little abstract for someone who just wants to feel more connected tonight.
It is abstract, and that's why the guide uses the story of Ming and Li on the hill to make it more concrete.
Wait, the story. Let's talk about that.
It's the perfect metaphor for this idea in practice. They're on this hill, the world just fades away, and their union is described like Tai Chi.
Like Tai Chi?
Slow, flowing, harmonious, each movement like a response to the other, like a conversation of two souls.
So the key element there is the flow. The sustained exchange.
It's the sustained exchange of energy. There's no external distraction. There's no internal pressure to get somewhere. They weren't rushing to a finish line. They were just sustaining the moment. Their energy merged, and it became, as the text says, one drop.
And what's so interesting there is that the Taoist path sees intimacy not as this routine thing we have to do, but as a celebration. A spiritual rebirth.
Right. So all those modern sexual blocks the guide talks about, the shame, the fear, the emotional coldness, the difficulty just accepting your own sexuality, all of those are just consequences of focusing only on the physical mechanics and completely ignoring the energetic and emotional layers that these Eastern practices put front and center.
You're trying to have a union without any of the awareness.
Precisely. The guide is basically suggesting that if your intention going into intimacy is purely self-serving or goal-oriented, you are inevitably going to hit that 90% wall where desire dies.
But if your intention is this selfless co-creation of energy and connection,
the celebration,
then the experience can actually sustain itself.
Exactly.
But that brings up a really critical question, and this is where we need the reality check. We're talking about cosmic consciousness and karma. How radical is this for a typical couple just trying to navigate work, a mortgage, kids? Is the author setting a bar that's just impossibly high by asking us to treat intimacy like a spiritual practice?
I think that's a very fair challenge, but I think the guide's implicit answer is that our modern lack of satisfaction is happening precisely because the bar is set too low.
We've reduced it.
We've reduced it to a purely physical function. And that function, when you divorce it from emotional and spiritual presence, it just becomes routine. And routine eventually becomes dull.
So the path isn't to become a tantric master overnight.
No, of course not. The path is to shift the intention. Just to shift from a goal of release to a goal of connection.
Just to ask yourself.
To just ask, am I fully present right now? Or am I just trying to get this over with? That simple internal check-in, that's the entry point to this whole conscious path.
So if you, the listener, just shift your definition of intimacy from a climax to a conversation of two souls, how radically does that one change your preparation, your approach to time?
It changes everything, and that's the thread we have to follow because it leads us directly to the absolute necessity of relaxation.
Okay, so moving from that really profound philosophy into, practical day-to-day application.
Right.
The guide insists that the crucial first step for this deeply conscious intimacy is something that sounds almost mundane, but it says it's mandatory. And that's relaxation. Why is the author so obsessed with relaxation?
This is where the guide does a brilliant job of bridging that ancient wisdom with modern neurophysiology.
All right.
The argument is actually very simple, and it's scientifically grounded. You cannot achieve a deep conscious connection if your nervous system is in a state of tension or stress. It's impossible.
So if you're in that fight or flight mode.
The sympathetic nervous system state, yeah. If you're in that state, your body is prioritizing defense. It's not prioritizing surrender or pleasure or deep receptivity. It can't.
And in the modern world, let's be honest, most of us live in this low-level, perpetual state of fight or flight.
Constantly. Our brains are flooded with cortisol and adrenaline from work stress, from traffic, from the demands of parenting. We are physiologically closed off before we even walk into the bedroom.
So we're starting from a deficit.
A huge deficit. And the text makes a really crucial distinction here about gender differences, which is essential to understanding why this initial phase is mandatory.
What's the distinction?
It states pretty plainly that a woman's psyche is generally more sensitive. It requires more time and the right environment to shift gears, and that's due to inherent hormonal and neurological differences.
So rushing doesn't work.
Rushing a woman into intimacy when she's still carrying the stress of the day, the mental to-do list, the emotional burdens, it leads directly to tension, discomfort, or even pain. The body simply cannot open up if it doesn't feel safe.
And safety is a function of the nervous system.
It's a function of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state.
So this isn't just about being romantic and lighting some candles. This is therapeutic preparatory work.
It is. It's about neurologically signaling safety to the body and allowing it to shift gears. And the guide outlines specific practical techniques the man can perform for, say, 10 to 15 minutes each to systematically calm the woman's nervous system. This is the pre-intimacy ritual.
Let's break those down. What's the first one?
The first step is a gentle head massage for 10 to 15 minutes. And the goal is purely to reduce tension in the head and neck.
We hold so much tension there.
An enormous amount in our jaw, our temples, our shoulders. And all of those are linked to the cranial nerves that regulate the entire nervous system. So by gently easing that tension, the whole system starts to downshift.
And the instruction is to be gentle.
Explicitly. Avoid strong pressure. Focus entirely on gentleness and rhythm.
Okay, what's the second technique?
The second is a foot massage. Again, 10 to 15 minutes. This activates nerve endings across the whole body, which has a deeply relaxing effect.
Right. Reflexology is based on that principle.
Exactly. And again, the focus is on light touch. The ritual has to remain unhurried and non-demanding. The feet are often overlooked, but they're incredibly potent points for grounding and releasing tension held throughout the body.
And the third.
And finally, a gentle abdominal massage, 10 to 15 minutes, using soft, circular movements, always clockwise.
Why the abdomen?
The abdominal area is often called our second brain. It houses this massive network of neurons, and it's a major storage point for stress, for anxiety, for unexpressed emotions.
So that gentle clockwise massage is helping to release that stored tension.
It aids digestion, sure, but more importantly in this context, it helps release that tension and signals psychological safety to the very core of the body.
So if you add that up, we're talking about a minimum of 30 to 45 minutes of preparatory non-sexual touch. And it's designed purely to regulate the nervous system and create safety. This is where I have to bring in that reality check again.
Okay.
For the 90% of couples who are struggling with intimacy, precisely because they're exhausted and time poor, isn't this guide setting a standard that's just unattainable?
It's a very fair challenge, and I think the guide's implicit answer is that you have to prioritize quality over frequency.
So do it less often, but do it better.
Exactly. The investment pays off exponentially. You might only do this full ritual once or twice a month, but those experiences will be profoundly more connecting and satisfying than 10 rushed, unsatisfying encounters.
And the author does suggest that even 10 minutes of focused relaxation is better than nothing.
Right. Just the head massage, for example. The key is the intention and the presence. It's not about checking a box.
It's about reframing the time spent. It's not a chore you have to get through. It's an investment in your relational capital.
Absolutely. And the environment is crucial too. Dimmed lights, soft music, putting the phones away, and just a relentless focus on emotional connection. The man's role here is pure gentleness and patience.
Creating a container of safety.
A container where the woman can fully surrender to the moment, physically and mentally.
And the text gives some clear signs for when that state is achieved, right? It's not something you have to guess at.
No, it's not a verbal confirmation, it's physiological observation. You'll see her muscles relax, her breathing will become noticeably slower and deeper, her eyes might close, her facial expression will get softer.
And the advice is, if she's not there yet,
be patient. Continue. You have to recognize that every woman is unique, and every single day requires a different level of patience depending on the stress she's carrying.
So the big takeaway here is that the guide is reframing foreplay. It's not just about arousal.
It's nervous system regulation. That's the key. If the man can successfully facilitate that state of profound relaxation and safety, then the intimate experience that follows is it's fundamentally different.
It moves from a tense release to something else.
To a conscious, shared flow of energy. And that prepares the couple for the next, even deeper stage of what the guide calls somatic healing.
This preparation, then, it leads us directly into the practices that focus on the yoni and the lingam. And we have to approach this section with the same focus the guide insists upon, which is therapeutic, somatic, and energetic.
That framing is absolutely essential. This is not about rapid pleasure. This is about deep body connection and emotional release.
So let's define the terms. The guide defines yoni as the Sanskrit term for
sacred space or feminine energy, and the practice is explicitly called yoni healing massage. Healing. It acknowledges that this highly sensitive area is also often the place where emotional trauma, shame, and unexpressed anger get stored in the body.
So the goal is not what most people would assume.
The overriding principle is that the goal is not orgasm. That might happen, but it's not the point. The point is deep relaxation, exploring new sensations, and strengthening the woman's connection to her own body and her own capacity for pleasure.
Okay, so let's detail the two crucial stages of this healing massage that the guide lays out.
Right. So the first stage involves this gentle, comprehensive external caressing, slow, deliberate touch on the inner thighs, the belly clockwise, the lower abdomen, and the breasts and nipples.
And the emphasis is on variety.
Variation and presence.
Yeah.
Using different movements, circles, S-shapes, zigzags across the skin. And the guide also introduces what it calls the one-hand technique.
What's that?
It's a perfect illustration of the mind-body connection in this practice. While one hand is focused on the body, the man's other hand, the non-active hand, can be placed gently on the woman's head.
Or on the third eye.
Or pressed gently on the third eye point between the eyebrows.
And that's specifically to calm the racing mind.
Exactly. It confirms this is deeply rooted in energy work. He's engaging the entire system, grounding her body while simultaneously calming her mental chatter.
Okay, so that's the first stage. What about the second?
The second stage is where the healing aspect, the somatic release, really comes into play. This stage involves gentle clitoral stimulation, but critically, it's combined with a movement that's designed to raise energy.
How does that work?
As the man is stimulating, his free hand runs upwards from the clitoris, up over the belly, the neck, chin, eyes, and forehead. This movement is both symbolic and energetic. It's intended to draw that sexual energy upward through the body.
And this is the moment where emotional vulnerability is at its peak.
Absolutely. The text explicitly encourages the woman to express all the emotions that come up.
Tears, laughter.
Tears, laughter, anxiety, anger, anything. This is the core of somatic release.
The purging mechanism.
It is. Past trauma, shame, fear. These emotional blocks aren't just memories, they are physiological tensions stored in our nervous system, in our muscular system.
And so by gently stimulating this area,
Energy starts to flow, and it forces those stored emotions to the surface to be released. And the man's role here shifts completely. He has to be the supportive, non-reactive witness.
just hold the space.
He's creating a safe container for that emotional hurricane, whatever it might be, to pass through. And he has to accept it without personalizing it or judging it.
And communication is the bridge. The guide notes that women are often socialized to suppress their needs.
So the man has to be an attentive observer, but also a gentle interrogator, using short, clear questions.
Right.
Is this stronger? Do you like this touch? Would you like me to touch somewhere else? The answers are the map.
And the guide backs this up with some pretty clear anatomical insight to reinforce why this targeted focus is so necessary.
It does. It cites research showing the massive difference in sensitivity. The clitoris has over 10,000 nerve endings. Some studies say up to 14,000.
Compared to the penis, which has.
Around 4,000. So that huge difference is the physiological reason why direct clitoral stimulation is essential for the majority of women to reach orgasm.
And why indirect stimulation during intercourse is often not enough.
Exactly. The science backs up why the man needs to slow down and focus on targeted sensation rather than expecting penetration alone to do all the work.
Okay, so now let's flip this and look at the Lingam Symphony, the erotic massage for men. This seems designed to counter that male tendency toward a rapid, monotonous release.
It is. The text acknowledges that men often crave intensity and new sensations, but the woman's role here is defined as the guide.
Moving away from the monotonous movement of self-satisfaction.
And instead creating a symphony full of variations. This is about transforming the male experience from a singular focus on climax to a comprehensive, multi-layered journey of sensation and presence.
And the guide gets very specific with techniques to achieve this.
Very specific. The goal is to force the man to stay present and focused on the quality of the sensation, not just the quantity of the movement.
So let's detail a few of those. It mentions drilling, or the whirlwind.
Right. That technique involves using both hands, maybe with a little lubrication, and moving them in opposite directions, one clockwise, one counterclockwise.
To create a complex sensory input.
Right. It forces the mind to stay with the sensation rather than drifting toward the climax. Then there are the thumb caresses, which are focused strokes along the underside seam, a highly sensitive but often overlooked area.
And it also mentions finger weaving and the inverted fist.
Finger weaving is using the finger pads, like little ropes, rolling them gently to create textural variation. The inverted fist uses the back of the fingers or knuckles to apply a broad, deep, sustained pressure, a completely different kind of stimulus.
The goal is sensory flooding.
A symphony of senses. The woman is the conductor. She's controlling the pace, the pressure, the rhythm, stronger, lighter, like waves. And she's adding accents like gentle testicle massage or perineal pressure.
All designed to enrich the experience and make it a whole-body connection.
Exactly. The ultimate goal for both practices is to deepen the intimate connection, to make it about the flow of energy, not just the physical conclusion.
And what about after?
This is so important. The essential post-climax advice is for both partners to stay together. Hug. Avoid rushing to clean up or leave the room.
That after connection.
The sharing of the energetic aftermath. It's essential for strengthening the emotional intimacy that you just spent all that time cultivating. The quality of your finish is just as important as the quality of your start.
There's a really powerful section in this guide that includes results from a 2020 survey. It had 96 people, mostly women. And this brings us right to the crisis of honesty and faked enjoyment in modern intimacy. The data here is, it doesn't just shock, it really exposes a fundamental instability.
It truly lays bare the magnitude of the connection crisis we're facing. Let's look at those core findings again. Nearly half of the respondents, 47.9%, occasionally fake enjoying sex.
Okay.
And then a staggering 21.9% constantly fake it.
Constantly. So if you add that up, we're at nearly 70% of people who are, at least some of the time, pretending.
Right. That means that at any given moment, almost half the people engaging in intimacy are hiding their true experience from their partner.
And that creates this massive chasm of inauthenticity.
And potential resentment. It's devastating. It suggests that modern intimacy is often less about shared pleasure and more about, managing a partner's ego.
Or just escaping a confrontation. Why are we doing this? Why are we so afraid to tell the truth when we're at our most vulnerable?
The source attributes this silence not just to fear, but to a really deep shame. People are afraid of hurting their partner's feelings, or, for women, of challenging the male ego.
Right.
The guide notes that a woman's satisfaction strongly influences a man's self-esteem. So if he feels he's failed to perform, his self-worth takes a hit.
And that emotional reaction just shuts down any chance for an honest dialogue in the future.
And the person who's faking it, they end up internalizing all that pain. They're choosing a superficial peace over a deep truth, and that inevitably leads to feeling unseen and misunderstood.
And the survey data points to a massive contributing factor here, which is a huge knowledge gap.
A huge gap. Respondents rated their knowledge about the opposite sex's psychology and anatomy very low, an average of only 6.3 out of 10.
That's barely a passing grade.
And only 17.9% even knew that there are different types of female orgasms. If you don't even have the vocabulary of pleasure, how can you possibly communicate your needs or even ask the right questions?
So you have this lack of knowledge, coupled with a fear of communication.
And it creates this relentless cycle of inadequacy and faked pleasure.
So the solution has to be radical communication, but it has to be communicated in a safe way.
The guide stresses the necessity of clear, direct, jargon-free conversation, and the man has to encourage that openness by setting the stage for safety, asking those short, clear questions.
And crucially,
accepting feedback without offense or defensiveness. You have to remove the ego from the equation completely.
I think that's the hardest part for so many people. Internalizing that advice that just because she says something doesn't feel good doesn't mean you're doing something wrong.
Yes.
It just means you're learning together. It means separating your identity from your performance.
You're not defined by the success of the climax. You're defined by the quality of your presence and your effort to understand.
And the guide provides another really profound pathway to manage these expectations.
Mm-hmm.
The survey found that 50% of respondents satisfy themselves on their own.
And the guide connects that statistic to some crucial self-care advice.
Which is?
When a partner can't satisfy your needs, taking care of yourself helps avoid the pain of unmet expectations. And it avoids the guilt or resentment that builds up over time.
That's a fascinating piece of advice. We often assume that if you're satisfying yourself, it means the relationship is failing.
But the guide completely flips that narrative. It says you can't rely on your partner to be your sole source of fulfillment. You are responsible for knowing and meeting your own needs first.
So that individual exploration isn't a sign of failure.
It's presented as a way to achieve inner balance and reduce the external pressure on your partner. By reducing the expectation that your partner has to fulfill all of your desires, you lighten the load on the relationship.
Which, ironically, strengthens the bond.
And it enables a more honest connection when you are together. Self-care in this context becomes relational healthcare.
Okay, so after achieving physical relaxation and hopefully establishing some honest communication, the guide then transitions to the next layer of slow sex.
Right.
The practice of deep energy and presence. And this is drawing heavily from Taoist techniques for synchronizing energy.
This is where the philosophy really meets the physical practice. We're moving beyond simple breathing and into a focused meditative exchange.
And the goal is to activate the body's internal energy.
What the Indians call prana and the Chinese call qi. You're trying to unify the couple's energetic fields. And these aren't just abstract forces, they're the vital, life-sustaining energies that flow through the body.
So what is the practice called?
It's called synchronized breathing in the couple. And it serves as the third foundational stage after the relaxation and the somatic touch.
Okay, let's detail this practice because it sounds very specific.
It is. The couple sits facing each other, gently hugging, and they just breathe rhythmically for 15 to 20 minutes. The key focus is on the rise and fall of the belly.
Simple physical and energetic alignment.
That's the goal. You're breathing together, synchronizing the inhalation and the exhalation. But the key instruction is to focus on the movement of the sacral area.
The base of the spine.
Exactly. By focusing on that gentle forward and backward movement of the sacrum with each breath, the practice is intended to stir up the sexual energy that originates at the root chakra.
That energy is the source of vitality and passion.
And it needs to be consciously activated. This is a form of active meditation that uses breath to align those lower energy centers. It's no longer about individual presence. It's about dual presence.
And the result, according to the texts,
is a pleasant feeling of lightheadedness, which is actually a positive physiological sign that the mind is relaxing, that it's shifting focus away from external worries and critically, it's a sign that the shared energy field is beginning to activate.
Okay, so from there we move to the more advanced technique.
The Great Circle visualization. This is really a deep dive into energy exchange. You're creating a conscious feedback loop between the two partners.
So how does that work? It's about creating a continuous flow.
A continuous, self-sustaining flow of energy. And it's the physical manifestation of that selfless giving we talked about earlier.
So the flow is cyclical.
And intentional. The man, on his inhale, visualizes his energy, his chi rising from his sacrum all the way up through his spine to the crown of his head.
Okay, and what is the woman doing at the same time?
Simultaneously, the woman exhales, and she visualizes that energy she just received flowing from the top of her head, down her spine, back to her sacrum, completing the circuit.
So she receives this upward energy and uses her exhale to guide it back down.
And returns it. The next cycle could reverse this, or they can maintain the pattern for a sustained period. But you're creating this continuous, synchronized visualization, man inhaling up, woman exhaling down, a powerful energetic circle.
And that continuity is what strengthens the connection and awakens that vital energy.
It transforms a static presence into a dynamic exchange. This is the ultimate expression of that Taoist goal, merging two energies into one drop.
Now, we can't forget the role of eye contact here.
Absolutely critical. The guide strongly emphasizes this. Maintaining gentle, non-aggressive, open eye contact during these practices, it strengthens the emotional connection.
It helps you sense each other's inner state.
And it allows you to merge on a deeper emotional and energetic level. When the mind is relaxed and the breathing is synchronized, the eyes truly become a portal for connection. They can enable a trust that words often fail to convey.
So we've moved from physiological relaxation to emotional healing, and now to energetic synchronization. The whole process transforms the intimate act from, a mechanical coupling into a shared, profound, meditative experience. Performance just dissolves, and presence becomes the only goal.
And that conscious creation is the absolute antithesis of the mechanical act that was plaguing Emily and Mark.
So we started this whole deep dive with a question. Can these ancient, slow, and let's be honest, demanding practices actually work for busy modern people?
For people like Emily and Mark who are already struggling to find 5 minutes of peace.
Exactly. We've just outlined sessions that can easily take an hour, the 45 minutes of massage, the 20 minutes of breathing.
And the guide offers a really clear, practical solution, but it's rooted entirely in prioritization. It comes down to a choice.
Superficial frequency or profound quality?
That's the choice. The guide argues that yes, these practices can work, but it requires you to consciously prioritize time. You have to set aside time just for the two of you.
And you have to prioritize quality over frequency.
The mantra becomes, make love less frequently, but more quality-focused. You are actively trading quantity for depth.
It also requires an acceptance of a fundamental kind of humbling truth, doesn't it? That the initial euphoria of a relationship, that hormone-driven explosion of excitement, it's temporary, it's unsustainable.
And the relationship has to consciously transition from that state to a state of conscious creation, of acceptance, of deep connection. You can't just keep chasing that initial spark.
You have to forge a new one.
A new one based on shared presence and intentionality.
And this leads us directly to the final and I think most transformative definition of love that's presented in this source material.
Right. This is from its Secrets of Successful Relationships section.
And it shifts the entire paradigm from what we usually learn in our culture. It defines mature, lasting love as
giving without expectations, selfless love.
That is the ultimate challenge. Because our modern society is built on transactional relationships. I do this for you, so you do this for me.
Scorekeeping.
To give without expectation means you have to overcome your ego and you have to overcome that scorekeeping mind that the survey data showed was running rampant.
And it requires a proactive structure to even establish that balance. The guide even suggests practical ways to enforce this selflessness.
Like dedicating specific, scheduled times purely for giving.
Exactly. For example, Friday night, the man lovingly and carefully fulfills the woman's desires. The full relaxation ritual, the somatic touch.
With zero expectation or need for reciprocity in that moment.
Zero. And then the relationship is balanced later. Maybe Saturday morning, the woman turns toward the man, giving him pleasure. Maybe performing the Lingam Symphony.
Focusing entirely on him, again, without expectation of a return favor.
The key is that neither partner is keeping score. The giving is selfless. And that structured dedication to intentional giving is what sustains intimacy long after the initial chemical attraction fades.
It's the highest form of conscious living connection.
And it requires both the vulnerability of that yoni healing and the presence of the great circle breathing to even be possible.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, taking this guide forward into your own life?
I think the whole book really builds to this powerful truth about equality and balance. The most important thing is that the relationship is equal, where neither partner only takes nor only gives. It's a continuous, balanced flow.
A lot like that energy circulation they visualize.
Exactly. And it raises a really important question for you to mull over today, one that sits at the very core of true conscious intimacy.
And that question is,
how often are you checking in to ensure you are giving without expectation, rather than subconsciously keeping a tally of what you think you're owed or what you're withholding?
because the depth of your intimacy, according to this guide, depends entirely on the honesty of that answer.
And on your willingness to surrender that scorekeeping mindset.
A profound thought to end on. Moving from mechanical motion to selfless creation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the lost art of conscious intimacy.